So in general, there's a misconcept. People think that physical activity, the impact of physical activity on prevention of diabetes through weight loss, but that's not true. There are different mechanisms how physical activity protects and enhance like glucose control. There, for instance, the circular system, it decreases hypertension, then it increases insulin sensitivity on the liver, and the adipose tissues, and on the muscle tissues. It also helps driving the glucose into the cells in the muscles. It decreases inflammations in adipose tissues. It decreases glucose production of the liver. It increases insulin production of pancreas, decreases glucagon production pancreas. It also decreases the triglyceride deposition in the liver. So it has a lot of different impacts, and not through weight loss. And all these impacts alone through physical activity, a parallel mechanism, this is how it protects from diabetes and how it helps to ensure like glucose control in people with pre-diabetes. Now, when the study I mentioned that they found that those with lower physical activity levels have better outcomes in long term, I think it's because it has the bigger margin to improve. Because those who had like already some physical activity and weight, they just reduced their weight, they maintained the physical activity. But those who had very low levels of no physical activity and increased weight, as they started physical activity, the double effect, that the effect of improving physical activity through all these mechanisms and the weight reduction. I think this is why the long-term impact probably is better for these people. And again, I think it's just a misconcept that physical activity is not the impact through weight loss, but has its own mechanisms on the body, how it improves glycemic control. So first of all, we know that not only for glucose control, we also know it's enough for prevention of hypertension, reducing heart diseases, cardiovascular disease, stroke, different cancers. And if you increase intensive physical activity, it brings some additional benefits, but it's not a linear increase. It's sort of a threshold which you probably reach with moderate physical activity. So, and our biggest problem is not getting people from moderate to high. Our biggest problem is that people have low or no physical activity. So we try to improve at least to moderate levels. And the other problem is if with high intensity or interval training is that for moderate physical activity, almost everybody can do it. Any patient can do it. For high intensity physical activity, it's probably good having maybe a cardiologist, a control, checking it to avoid like a sudden death and other complications. So you need to have a clinical investigation of the patients to find out if the patient is suitable for high intensity physical activity. And I think moderate is good enough because it makes it much easier. You can have in the clinical history talking to the patient, you can make sure that he doesn't have any dyspnea or problems when he walks fast. So I think it's much easier for people to start with moderate physical activity. That's why I think high intensity is more probably if you're well trained. But if you're well trained, you don't have that much diabetes anyway, usually in good conditions. So for the regular patient with diabetes or pre-diabetes, I would suggest start with moderate physical activity. And this is usually when you walk and run. I explain to patients that you can talk with someone but not sing. If you can't sing or talk, then it's high intensity. So it's a way how to explain people moderate physical activity is. And the previous study was interesting because it showed actually there were no differences between moderate and high intensity. They have the same outcome. And even if they had the high protein or moderate protein diet, so there was no difference. So it shows that moderate is good enough and it's safe. A moderate physical activity is safe for everyone. And that will be my recommendations. I mean, we know that any lifestyle habit you learn from childhood is easier to maintain in adulthood, right? We know, for instance, children that are obese in childhood, they're more likely to be obese in adolescence and more likely to become obese as adults. The same with physical activity. And definitely healthy lifestyle it has to be taught to children starting from kindergarten. The recommendations of physical activity are different for children than for adults. For children, it's 300 minutes. The children should run around, they should move around. But the problem we have nowadays with electronics, with screen times, it's more difficult that people move probably, and our children moving every day less. And the healthy habits we have to start very early, and the schools can help. When I was to primary school, we had 3 hours of physical activity at school. We were a group of 25 students in primary school. we had to move all the time. So we had a curriculum physical activity. We had to learn a curriculum athletics, sprint 80 meters, high jumping, long jumping, throwing a ball, 800 meters running.
Yeah.
Then with a curriculum in gymnastics, everybody had to do. We had to be able to climb up a rope.
Yeah.
And then we had all different games. We went through handball, volleyball, football, everything, and everybody was moving, and this is really important. So in the break usually in the school, children are running around and moving. But nowadays there are more in groups gathering with TikTok and Instagram and social media, which is very different. And I think at least in some countries, at least in Finland, where we have my academic training,
Yeah.
their physical activity at some levels is voluntary. You don't have mandatory physical activity.
Yeah.
My children in school in the US, they have 1 hour of physical activity at school per week,
Okay.
or 1.5 hours, and that's not enough.
No.
And not everybody is moving. So I think children should have 3 hours of guided physical activity, a curriculum and school. They should learn all the basics, like
Yeah.
the basic sports, and they should learn how the fun of being physical active. They don't have to compete, but they have to enjoy why to be physical active, and you have to find some ways how to motivate people, children to be active. And it's a challenge because if you have a school of 20, 30 people,
Yeah.
how be physical active and how to make everybody moving, that not there some people are sitting there. But I think it worked in my childhood, so it should work nowadays as well.
Yeah.
So, but the studies, you're right, they showed that early on physical activity, you learn certain behavior, you maintain it through longer time,
Yeah.
and you're more likely to maintain them. And I think it's also the longer you give, it's like with medication, anything else, the longer you're exposed to a healthy lifestyle, the better output you have, the better outcomes you have.
Yeah.
If you start physically late, then it's too late.
Exactly.
And for diabetes prevention, it's not that we should start prevention at the age of 35 or later.
No.
Diabetes prevention starts from childhood,
Yeah.
actually from birth, from during pregnancy, and how the stress of the pregnant woman has impacts the child. And then from very small, prevention starts, it's a whole life cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And will never end. And even for older adults, it's important physical activity. In South America, I worked at the Ministry of Health in Argentina and Paraguay, where we developed the physical activity guidelines for the population and how to monitor them. So we didn't that much add like how to maintain, it was just the overall strategies.
Yeah.
In Colombia, we had the Demo Juan project, which is a pragmatic trial that we identify people using the Finnish diabetes risk score at high risk,
Yeah.
pre-diabetes, with an oral glucose tolerance test. And then we had them in intervention groups. And one part of the intervention is physical activity. We had them as group interventions. Now, the physical activity intervention needs to be adapted to the culture because Barranquilla is a city on the coast. It's very warm, 45 degrees Celsius. It's heat. People don't go to walk around fast. Everyone moves slowly. So you have to find a way, and you cannot help them go run outside at 50 degrees. So it's not really human conditions, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to find another way how to motivate them physical active, and they like to dance.
Yeah.
So it's okay, then dance for 1 hour a day. So we try to adopt the interventions, also the dietary habits and physicality, the local culture. Now, and this works. People like to dance, so they move.
To localize, right?
Yes, and it's nice. Dancing is a nice form.
Yes.
So in everywhere you have to find out what are the physicality types people like to do. In Finland, for instance, when I worked in primary healthcare, I did physicality prescriptions to my patients.
Yeah.
You have winters are cold and long, there's ice and snow, 20 degrees below zero. So you cannot tell them go run outside.
No.
So you have to identify with the patients what is the best maybe form of physicality they like to do. Maybe indoor something, maybe walk, skiing in summer, maybe hiking skiing in winter and hiking in summer. So you have to adapt interventions to the conditions. So that's one thing. So what I learned in different areas that work.
Yeah.
Now, how to maintain it. There we have all the behavior change model theories like the Prochaska theory that you need to, I think ideally you identify first the people where they are. It's pre-contemplation, contemplation, action phase. And then it's not enough just giving health education information. If people don't change with just having education, information, but it's the first step. People need to have the information why physicality is healthy. But then you need to give motivation, motivate the patient, other people, and skill training.
Yeah,
So education, skill training, motivation, that will lead to an impact that people start to move or
exactly.
start to make a change. But without this, it's difficult because we know that we should move, but we don't move. We should eat healthy, we still eat unhealthy.
Yeah, we just
So
go do it.
yes, and so it's really train the people how to make these healthy choices, how to start to be physically active. And then the problem, as you mentioned, to maintain it, the
Yes.
compliance. And for this is, if you add the social support and
Mhm.
environmental modifications,
Yeah.
there are two elements that are important. Social supports, like you mentioned, the family. If the whole family starts to move, makes it like a habit that on Sundays you go to walk, every
Yeah.
week you have a half an hour walk, 1 hour walk, the social connection, or with friends, or if you like to do some more sports, you go play football or tennis, do on a regular basis. But this need a social environment.
Yes.
And then you can join maybe a team, or there's walking football. There's a program that you don't run, you walk. This for people maybe who have problems with their knees, but they're walking fast and they're not allowed to run.
No.
They kick the ball. It's a whole world championship in that. So these are all different strategies that can be implemented. So the social support. The other one is the environmental modification. So in some countries, I live, I like to see people be active,
Mhm.
but it's not safe. There's no light in the evening, and not a safe neighborhood. So you need to have bicycle lanes that people can go use the bicycle. If there are no bicycle lanes, it's very difficult. You don't want to go on the traffic in the streets. I'm not sure if all cities in China have bicycle roads or not, or if it's separated or not. But
We do.
in the US, not all of them. And
Okay.
in the Netherlands, all of them. In Finland, there's a lot of
Yeah.
bicycle lanes, but
Different.
it's having the environmental modification that
Yes.
people can be active. In South America, there are a lot of public parks with physical activity facilities. So you
Yes.
can do some strength training in the park
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah.
I think access to parks, the access to green space has an impact on behavior.
Yeah.
So that's one. Now, we live in a digital age.
Yeah.
So with all kind of tracing devices, it's a good motivation. I mean, I use a tracing device and it helps me. It's nice to know how many steps I do. Your cell phone has a step counter. Every cell phone counts your steps. So
Yeah.
I think it helps to monitor your health. It changes your weight, your sleep, your physicality. So for some people who like the electronics, it may help.
Yes.
But for older adults, probably less because they're not that much probably use them. But I guess for the younger generation, I'm sure it's a great tool having devices, electronic devices to maintain. And there's some studies that show that actually using electronic device can motivate people more being active. But I think all these elements are important. It's not just one is more important than the other. So the family support, social support, friends, um, having social, environmental modifications, and the digital apps, all together, they probably help to maintain the visibility. And the most important thing is to start because you have to break the circle of sedentarism. Once you start, it's much easier. The longer you maintain it, like the diabetes prevention study in Finland showed that the longer, if people after 2 or 3 years of intervention,
Yeah.
when the intervention officially stopped, but people maintain their healthy lifestyle, if you do it for 2 or 3 years, the same in the Chinese studies, if you maintain a healthy lifestyle habit, you're more likely to continue in the future. It's doable, and like this contest sometimes, like here you have a step contest, they help.
Yes.
But we should every day get into 10,000 steps at
Yes.
least, and that will help. And
Yeah.
but devices help for that, for setting goals. And you mentioned actually also goal setting is really important
Mhm.
for some people, right? I mean, I think on flow charts, I like setting goals and targets,
Yeah.
and many people do it. So for them, it's easier. Others, you have to find a natural way, like to make it a habit in the morning, going for half an hour to walk. If you have a dog or something, it helps.
Yes.
And I have a cat, doesn't help, but but I think it really helps, like that you find some habits, or a friend or a neighbor, and they do this together, and
Yes.
that helps. So both the UK program and the National Diabetes Research Program in the US, they have physiotherapy is one of the key elements of the
Yeah.
intervention. So
Mhm.
I don't know exactly how the detailed program works, but I know it's one of the key elements with calorie counts, with American program and 5% the UK program with the targets, but also getting to the recommended levels of physiotherapy, which is 150 minutes per day, moderate intensity. And they're built in, which is good. Also the Finnish diabetes prevention program, which is the first ever national prevention program physical activity is a key component of it. So all these programs will include physical activity. And a lot because what we discussed at the beginning, because you have weight loss, but you also need physical activity. In the end, it's an energy balance. So there are two ways of energy balance. You can have like no high energy intake, high physical activity.
Yeah.
It's about you don't gain weight, or you can have low energy intake and low physical activity. You don't have a weight gain.
Yeah.
But the first one is healthier because you have to impact the physical activity. So that's why they go hand in hand, and they have different mechanisms for that. I think that's important, having this included in every program should have physically activity intervention programs and motivating people how to make these changes. Now, there are always challenges in the future, and I think one is definitely how to motivate patients maintaining their physical activity. Then there's a lot of studies on the prescription of physical activity. I think every patient with pre-diabetes, every patient who's obese or overweight or has hypertension should receive a physical activity prescription. Because some patients expect to go to physician, they come out with a prescription.
Yes.
If you tell them just you have to be active, then they're disappointed. They didn't get a prescription. So the programs that prescribe you physical activity, do everything we discussed, like assessing what type of physical activity, there's a follow-up visit. And I think that's a structured, guided program to improve physical activity step by step is important, and to evaluate these programs. But as we know from studies, this program exists, but you have to scale them up.
Yeah.
And the same is with the diabetes prevention program. You have the famous King study of diabetes prevention. So it's scaling up this program for primary healthcare that will make a difference. But then you need to evaluate them. And there's a lot of programs exist, but they're not really evaluated. So you have to have some indicators. How are we going to assess that it's a success, the program? How to use digital devices. It's a positive challenge, but we need to know how it works. Maybe we can develop interventions, online interventions like YouTube videos, or maybe apps that especially maybe help you be physical active, that reminds you every day you should move, combined with step count. A lot of devices probably exist already for that. But I think it's also in low resource settings, physical activity per se doesn't cost much money.
No.
It's really, there are forms of physical activity to walk should be possible for most patients. And it's really all about communication, restructuring, and setting the stage that people can physically active. And low resource settings, I think it's important to identify what are the limits, what are the barriers that people cannot be active. If it's maybe because they're working all day and they don't have the time, then we have to find, okay, how to get some time. Then you don't have to do 30 minutes in a row. You can do 3 times 10 minutes per day, and it helps as well. You just need to get to 150 minutes. I think these are the tricks, probably, how to make the challenges, how to make the average person being more active. Because on average, we don't get to 150 minutes.
No.
And it has to be with the changes of working habits. We are sitting more, there's screens, and we're moving much less at work. My mom's grandparents' generation, they worked in the forest and in the agriculture and the fields. So it was a different, that physicality at work. We don't have that.